what got you into being a play-by-play broadcaster? Was it something you were a young kid and you saw or listened to a bit of commentary and you're like, yep, that's what I want to do? Or was it something that just evolved over time?
Yeah, it's a weird one. I'll start by saying I was a weird child and probably a weird adult. For those listening that know me, probably can say, yeah, that's true. But I just loved sport as a kid. I played pretty much everything, constantly watching it. My life and even now, I mean, my life and work are sport. I'm quite fortunate, but I have a couple of sisters, so I would spend most of the time just by myself out in the backyard kicking the ball around or whatever, and I would actually commentate. As weird as that sounds, so I was a bit of a weird kid. So I'd be impersonating, Rabs Warren or Bruce McAvaney or whoever, whatever sport I was playing. I'd commentate in the backyard, and I sort of came to about 18, 19 leaving school, and I knew obviously I was obsessed by sport. I wanted to do something in that sports realm, in the media. Didn't get the marks to go to uni to do journalism, so I sort of fell into community radio and trying to, I guess, develop skills there. And that was the path for me initially. And I guess a long story short, I ended up at 2SRFM, which is a community station in the Sutherland Shire in Sydney. And the station manager said, look, we're looking for someone to call games, the Sutherland Sharks, the local NPL team. And I was like, right place, right time. I mean, it was sort of the stars aligning. I'm like, yeah, I mean, and I just went from there. So, I mean, I've been impersonating Martin Tyler for probably 10, 15 years before that. And, people ask me, they're like, how do you develop a style, or how do you come up, as a commentator, how do you begin? And I think the base is always somewhat of impersonation. I mean, your guide is generally someone that you grew up listening, whether it's Ray Warren, Bruce McAvaney, these iconic names that have filled Australian sport and world sport. So it's really a launching pad from there. You're doing your best sort of Martin Tyler impersonation, and then as you get better and as you gain experience and find your own style, you sort of refine it from there. But I mean, look, I started when I was 18. I'm 36 now. I kind of feel like I'm still refining my style. I still think it's a constant work. Every game you're getting better and learning and trying to develop. So yeah, that's sort of where it all started, and it's been quite a ridiculous ride since. I mean, I often think back, when I was 18 leaving school, as I said, didn't get the marks to get into journalism. I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. It's quite far-fetched. How do I make it happen? Flash forward to 36 now, and all the things I've done in my career. And, I'm certainly not a superstar or a huge name in the industry, but I've done some pretty cool things. And sometimes you just sit there and go, it's been quite a ride. So I'm very lucky.
It's good you take the time to reflect on it, and that's super important because I guess it helps you enjoy it a little bit more. One of the bits of advice I try and give to callers who want to improve their craft is basically listen to everything and then take the bits and pieces that you like and look at the things you don't like and actively resist against bringing that into your style. So then you can build that foundation of what you want. Because you have to, am I right in saying you really have to have that foundation of something that's purely you, but obviously it's a menagerie of a few other bits and pieces you've picked up along the way.
Yeah, it'll develop as you go as well, and there's different styles of broadcasting as well. I mean, a radio call is not the same as a TV call. If you're doing something for streaming now,
Mm-hmm.
which is more, pretty common these days, that could have elements of a TV broadcast in it as well, as a presenting role as well. So there's so many different skills you've got to constantly develop, but you're exactly right. Always listen back. I always try to listen. You're always very damning of your commentary. You're
Mm-hmm.
always like, I wish I could have done that. You could always have done it better. And you're always looking for ways to do it better, but also like talk to people. I've been lucky to send tapes to people and send links and say, hey, can you give me some advice? Names that are familiar in the game, across multiple sports, and the guys that you're trying to get a job off in terms of being a commentator. You're always listening to their feedback because they're the ones you want to impress and want to learn from ultimately.
Let's start back to when you finished high school and you knew you weren't going to get the marks to get into journalism, but you had that community radio thing that you were going to sink your foot into. What were you doing at the same time? Did you end up going to uni? Did you end up doing part-time work? And how did you find juggling all that while still harboring that interest and passion to go, I want to sink my teeth into this calling?
Oh, it's been a hustle from 18 to probably 30, to be honest. I mean, I've had a pretty good security the last sort of 5, 6 years in my career in terms of work, but before then it was a real hustle. Just taking opportunities, trying to survive really. Casual work, part-time work, trying to find media roles where I could grow and learn, but also I've got to be conscious too. And I found this really difficult to juggle in my career was, if I'm calling for Fox Sports, I can't write articles for someone that isn't News Limited, So
Yeah, of
it's a
course.
real challenge. It's a real challenge and did come quite tricky at times. But I just found like the biggest advice I could give anyone is just throw yourself into everything. So
Mm.
whatever the sport, whatever the gig is, if it's commentary, if it's an MC, I think the versatility to me is my biggest strength and where I've learned the most. I'm at the moment obviously work as a commentator. I work in media and in public relations as well, but also I do MC work for Sydney FC and various other clubs. So, and that's just been from, oh, we need an MC. Okay, yeah, I'll do it. And you can only get better with experience. The more you do it, and obviously the more you learn. And they all sort of blend together. I mean, those MC skills will help you in your commentary and presenting skills and whatnot. So you're just adding strings to your bow. But yeah, from that age of 18, it was working casually. Like my mates still rib me about the amount of jobs I've had. Not that I was a bad employee. I don't think I've ever been sacked from any of them, but it just trying to make them work with sporting calendars and casual work. I used to work in a bar, and they're like, "Why do you need Saturday night off? You're doing a radio call for $0." So um, it may not look the soundest career moves from a financial standpoint, but I just knew that I basically wanted to say, and I still want to say, if I never make it to the high levels that I want to go to, at least I can look in the mirror and say, well, I gave it everything I had. I did everything. I was fully committed. So, I mean, hopefully I do get there. But if not, I mean, as I said before, like I've done so much, and I'm so lucky to have been involved in the things I am involved in. So, but yeah, I hustle, and that's what it takes. I mean, you're going to have a work ethic, and I've missed that many birthdays,
Mm.
weddings, 21st, constantly missing those things because I put the commentary and everything else first, and it's sacrifice. That's unfortunately
Yeah.
what you need a bit of in this industry to
It's hard
make
to
it.
say
So
no, isn't it? It's because you see the competitive industry. It doesn't matter what level you're at and what sport that you're at. As if you had said no for that one time, and when you started off at a community radio to call the games, they would have asked somebody else. They would have taken the spot. So it's such a competitive industry at any level that you just have to keep saying yes. And I guess it does come at a cost to missing of things as you've said, and when you're chasing the dragon, so to speak, of going, well, this is what I want to get to. So you end up having to say yes 99 times out of 100, even if it throws you out somewhere else.
and it's such a sliding doors moment. I mean, I've got a great story of one where I got asked to do an MC gig in Newcastle, and it was when the Asian Cup was on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Auckland City were playing Japan in like a practice game in Cessnock before the Asian Cup. And they're like, "Oh, we need an MC." I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it." I've never really done it before, and I did it. It was fine. Obviously, no football, so got my way through it. It's basically just reading a script. It's not too difficult. And then the next week, and I'd put on social media that I was doing this and some clips of what I did. And the next week, the West Tigers actually reached out to me and like, "Oh, we saw that you were doing some MC work. We actually need an MC this year. Do you want to do it?" I'm like, "Okay." So it just goes to show like sliding doors moments. You take that opportunity. I had done some MC before, but I was still very raw to it,
Mm.
and it can lead to something like that. So yeah, grab those opportunities and just do your best. And sometimes a bit of luck helps as well. Um, sometimes those things can happen. So
Well, that's
and
that's
that
that's the advantage, I guess, of using social media to really plug and showcase some of the work that you've done, because you just never know who may have a listen or a watch and go, you know what, we want to get that person and get them involved in what we're doing.
yeah, and I mean I'm the type of person that probably not evident in this podcast because I'm just talking nonstop. But I'm not someone that will, I'm a bit standoffish. I'm a bit shy in that sense. I'm not someone that will constantly just push myself forward and say how good I am. But one thing I think I've done well is the social media. I use that to showcase my work, and you'd be surprised the amount of opportunities that come from that. And a lot of it is just reminding those people that you're still around. You're still doing this stuff. You're still active, and people are looking for someone. They go, "Oh, that's right. I saw that clip from Adam on LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever." That's sometimes how it can work as well. So you've got to market yourself at the same time. It's something that, as I said, doesn't really come naturally to me, but it is important because you need to show what you're doing and show you're there and you want to work.
I guess I'd probably come from the same sort of ilk as well, is that I'm not one of those people that I just go, hey, look at me, this is what I'm doing. When I don't know about you, but when I use social media, whether it be TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever, I like showcasing the passages of play that I had the privilege as a fan with a microphone on to be able to call. So as much as I'm going, hey, cool, listen to this little bit of commentary or listen to this little bit of work that I've done, but look, here it is. This is what I got to see. How awesome is this? Is that something you sort of relate to as well, to go, hey, that's probably more of the foundation of pushing through, going, hey, look at how cool of what this happened on the weekend that I was able to be a part of.
Yeah, and the A-League Grand Final last year is the perfect example. Such huge moment. No one expected the Mariners to do what they did, and
No.
you sort of sit back after that and go, "I got to call that." So you're 100% right. And we're all fans at the end of the day. It's not about we do for work, but at the same time, I mean, I am a sports fan at the end of the day. I mean, I was in the grandstand for most of the Women's World Cup, just as every other football fan, spending my hard earned. I'm a Canterbury Bulldogs fan and constantly at their games with everyone else, and so you can't lose that as well. Ultimately, we are fans at the end of the day.
So let's dial it back again. You're 18, 19-year-old. You get involved in the community radio. You go out. You put the cans on for your first game. What's it like in the lead up to that as a young person coming through, and how are you feeling? What's the preparation like? And I know you've caught a lot of sports since then, but what are your memories of that whole occasion?
Yeah, I don't really remember being nervous, and I think it was, it's obviously community radio. You're not got thousands of people tuning in, but you've got a passionate audience. They would make themselves known through my time there at TWSR. But yeah, it was really player ID and getting into that habit of that core play-by-play was I guess the main learning for me. I mean, you go out there and sort of do your best, but I know when I listened back to those first 5-6 games I did, I'm like, oh, the player ID needs some work. So it's about doing research as well. I mean, every commentator will tell you. I mean, the amount of research I do before a game, 4 or 5 days going through. Fortunately, the A-League will send out sort of a stats book before every game. You sort of go through and obviously you do your own research as well. But that first sort of 5-6 games, I was doing research, but nothing to the degree of what I do now. And that makes such a difference to your commentary. When you're not calling the game, your ability to fill those gaps and just add that little bit of color to the broadcast. So, but I think when people commentate, I think people feel like anyone can do it until they actually do it. And then they realize how hard it actually is. And I think I was probably the same. You're like, oh yeah, I follow sport. I love football. It can't be too hard, but you sort of understand post game. You're like, oh, okay, there's some real work involved in this. So
and it's
I learned that
exhausting, isn't it?
it's so time consuming, and as most commentators will know, like I'll have about 20 bits of paper in front of me. You've probably seen the box when
Yes,
I'm
yeah.
in there. It's a bit of chaos, but and you'll use like 3 or 4 of those pages. So, but the rest of it is generally imprinted upstairs somewhere in your brain. So, yeah, the biggest learnings for me in those early days was research, and in terms of player ID, just getting to know who the players are, which is again, I guess, part of research as well.
So you get through your first few games and you sort of settle in. How do you go from calling on community radio to the next step, and what sort of happened in that process?
Yeah, so I called the NPL for about 2 or 3 seasons just on community radio, and always sort of reaching out to people and saying, okay, how can I get better? How can I improve? Getting that feedback, just continually working. I called a few other things as well. I was calling rugby union every now and then, AFL as well. And basically, Football New South Wales started using me, doing some voiceover and doing some highlights on their highlight show, which they do every week. So I would actually sit in my car Sunday night from about 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. just recording voiceovers and various forms of commentary, which we'd actually do in post-production. So I wouldn't actually call the games. I would call like highlights of the games, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So that, which is another art form as well. So the call in post-production, which I've done a little bit of in commentary as well, that's an art form as well, because you obviously, sometimes you know the result, or you know what happened, you know how the goal was scored before you start calling it. So sort of faking it, or trying to be a bit creative in the way you call the game that you already know the result of, is a challenge. So that was a new skill in doing that. And that sort of led me to doing a lot more with Football New South Wales. And then the trajectory from there was FFA Cup with Fox Sports. And then that has led to A-League games and some W League games, and some of the biggest stuff I've done in my career. So that's probably over like a decade, maybe 8 or 9 years, that journey. But the NPL was so valuable. I mean, that again was a step up, allowed me to just again cultivate those skills. And I went from doing Sutherland Sharks games to doing, a couple of games a week, every week. So just elevated my game that more and more.
It's always important to have that reflection of where you come from. I, personally, I go to every game, and for those watching on YouTube, I have a stubby holder of my local footy netball club back home in Victoria. Not only just a reminder of where I got in the door myself and where I started to fall in love with sport, but it's a reminder that every single game that I call at whatever level, I always have a coffee and I always have that stubby holder as a reminder of my roots. And even though I haven't been sort of tied with that competition for quite some time, that always comes with me. Do you sort of reflect on that a fair bit, to where you sort of come and how important that was to giving you the opportunities you've had going forward?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm super conscious of the opportunities that have been given to me to hone my craft and sort of take me to the next level. I mean, the NPL in New South Wales was huge for me. I'm not here today where I am without that. I haven't called there for a couple of years, and that was just a case of just too much of a workload trying to juggle everything to make it work. But still very much across the competition as a fan. And I'm not the only commentator that was coming through the NPL. There's a host of names around Australia. I mean, I'm blown away at some of the talent that's coming through, which, I mean, is competition for me. But I guess, you want to welcome it if it's coming. And, particularly in the NPL New South Wales, there's a host of callers that can certainly, match me and hopefully have fine careers as well. So, they're doing a great job giving opportunities to a ton of callers, and it certainly wouldn't be here today without that experience as well.
Shows the importance of community radio to ultimately lead your path into commercial radio. Now, you're 36. You've called a fair few awesome sporting hot moments and things like that. Give us a bit of a rap sheet of some of the organisations you've sort of worked for. I know you've already touched on it. I know you're tied with you at SEN. And who are some of the organisations that you've been fortunate enough to do some work with along the journey?
I mean, obviously NPL New South Wales was the main one for me. And then obviously the A-League as well, Fox Sports gave me some great opportunities. I mean, I remember 30th birthday, I think 3 days after it, I made my A-League debut on Fox Sports, which was always a huge milestone for me. And then I was working for news.com at the time. I flew to WrestleMania to do some interviews with the WWE. I was interviewing Hulk Hogan about 2 days later. And I remember sitting there at the end of that week just going, so I did my A-League debut, which was like bucket list. That's the dream. And now I'm at WrestleMania interviewing Hulk Hogan. I was just like, this is a ridiculous week.
Which WrestleMania was that one?
I was in Orlando, so yes. Is that 30, I think? Or 33, sorry. 33, I think it was. Yep. Yeah, so it was 2017. So, Yeah, just the amount of things. I mean, NEFL, I called the NEFL here in Sydney, the Sydney AFL as well. I've been involved with them over the years. Just a host of sporting leagues like I've done. I mean, that many calls, the amount of emails I get sometimes, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. I've done the last 3 years. I've done the women's national championships, rugby league on the Gold Coast, which has been really cool. And just seeing, I guess, as I was saying before, the growth of that and the skill level of those players and going through the NRLW has been a real highlight to be involved in. So, I mean, in terms of that middle tier level, the NPL level, there's not too much I haven't done at that level. For me, it's about breaking. I really want to break through to that next level now consistently. I mean, I do some stuff, but there's still more for me to do in terms of ambition. And, as I said, I'm 36 now. I did my A-League debut on Fox Sports at 30. I think I'm a better commentator than I was when I got that opportunity or got those opportunities. I just feel I've improved a lot. I'm more confident as a caller. And I just think you just get better the more games you do. So I look back now and I think I wish I had that now because, I feel like I would smash it out of the park. Not that it was a failure or anything like that, but I just think, look, I would do a much better job today with that. So not a regret, but yeah, I just feel like the opportunities I had then, if I had them again now, I think it'd be a different outcome.
But I guess it goes to show, and you've mentioned it before, it's a sliding doors moment. If you were so good in that moment, then the door might have opened somewhere else and you might have been taken on a different trajectory that may not be where you are. And that's the reality of it. Your life can change just like that in a heartbeat in terms of one person could be there watching a video on LinkedIn and go, hey, let's get that person involved, and away you go.
Yeah, that's it. And look, I was fortunate. The A-League, I had that development through the NPL, the FFA Cup, now the Australia Cup, and obviously getting some opportunities to A-League women and A-League men. It shows there's a pathway for callers. I mean, and a lot of people get a bit disheartened because they're not getting those opportunities. I mean, there aren't that many opportunities at that real top level. Free-to-air TV, commercial TV with Foxtel. You've got to really graft away. There's a pack of people wanting that opportunity. So you just got to keep plugging away. And ultimately, if you love it like we do, you will keep chipping away because you want it that bad.
And it goes back to what Daniel Viles and I were talking about in episode 1 of Play by Pod, is that we spoke about how the streaming world has grown here in Australia, that it becomes more of why isn't something getting streamed, and from a sporting nature at any level, and then what the capacity is to have callers on there. I see that if you can't get to that top level, do the things that you can, and don't be disheartened by those getting opportunities above you. It's the nature of the beast, but fall in love with the fact that you can call at the level that you can, and I guess appreciate, even if you do drop down a couple of levels, that what that does for the profile of that sport or that competition, it's invaluable.
Yeah, definitely. And as I said, like I'm 36 now. In those 6 years since I, got that opportunity with Fox Sports, I feel like I've gotten better, and that's just, crafting my skills and just staying active and taking those opportunities wherever they come to get better and just develop myself as a caller. And I was really hardened. Jason Bennett is someone that I've had a little bit to do with in my role with ESPN, and I remember he posted on LinkedIn a few months ago about how he didn't call a game for about 15 years in commentary because he was living in the States doing some stuff for ESPN. And he said he always had that dream and he always worked at it. And you look at where he is now and you think, I feel that's great filler for anyone that's got that ambition. Just because it's not working now doesn't mean a couple of years down the line, 5 years down the line, it could be very different. So, get out there, do the work, and who knows.
It's funny that you mentioned Jason Bennett, because I know in my commentary circles, he's a guy that we sort of look to and admire, and a few of us have had the privilege to spend some time chatting with him and learning about how he got into it by accident, and how it sort of took off. And it's just amazing with the perseverance. Is there some callers that you look at present and you will actively go out of your way to listen to them because you like their styles or you like the way they sort of deliver a particular broadcast?
Yeah, mainly in football. I think Martin Tyler for mine has been the go-to, and I know he was criticised a little bit for his commentary during the World Cup. on SBS, and I didn't necessarily subscribe to that, but yeah, he's someone, if you know he's calling a game, he just adds that sort of appeal to it, that he elevates the broadcast, because you're like, some of the iconic moments in football. For him, I think in terms of rugby league, I'm a big fan of Andrew Voss, and AFL, I think Bruce was just so good, and so beloved, because particularly when you got the context of a commentary and you've been a caller, you understand. I think you respect those little moments. They can add so much to a broadcast by saying 2 or 3 words, or just coming up with that perfect bit of information, or that line, which, there's times where you wonder, when you're watching a broadcast, you wonder, like, did they come up with that in advance? Did that just come on the spot? Because some callers will actually, and it is a skill, they will craft something. They'll think, okay, if this guy scores a goal, I've got this little tidbit of information, I'm going to craft this like clever line and throw it in my commentary. 9 times out of 10, it sounds too artificial. It sounds like you've had it ready up your sleeve, but the good ones can camouflage that. And you go, was that off the top of their head, or did they actually come up with that beforehand? So, yeah, those real established callers, there's an art to what they do, and I know I sit there and go, I wish I could be at that level, but that's a learning,
But I think it comes down to the foundation of what it's like for you as a caller. I don't know about you, but me personally, I don't even want to think about what could happen. I just like putting the cans on and living in the moment. And what you're getting through the cans is as authentic and as a genuine as, like, if I could be in the stands as a footy fan or a cricket fan or whatever, that's the reaction I would be giving. And so if I come up with one of those one-liners, I'm not planning those in advance. They come out in the moment because I'm a sporting fan going, how good's this? And I think thinking back to what you said earlier about you sitting in the car and you're looking over highlights, the predetermined results. There's living in the moment, and then there's living the moment's already passed. How do you separate the two, and where do your strengths sort of lie in that sense?
Yeah, well, I think you're 100% right. I think the best commentary comes when it's genuine and it's live, and you are living in that moment. Where a fan that's seeing this wonder goal and you're getting that pure reaction in seconds. I think that's where the commentary is the best, and I think every commentator should shoot for that. I mean, I know commentators do use these clever lines and try to work that in, and I've sat there at times and go, oh, okay, if Tim Cahill scores, that'd be a cool line to say. And I never use it, just because I'm taken in the moment. You go with whatever comes to you. So I think that's the way you should commentate. But there are aspects where you can curate and try to finesse things a bit. And to your point, when you're doing, it's rare, but occasionally you'll get gigs to do like post-production or call a game to make it, they call it a look live, basically. And that's a challenge because you're trying not to sound too artificial. So the key for me with that is I try to do it first take, as if I'm getting fresh eyes on it, as if it's a live game for me. Because I feel like it's a bit like a podcast. I mean, you record a podcast and say you have technical problems and you try to do it again. It's never as good the second time. And that's the same as commentary. You've got to live in that moment. So I think you're 100% right.
Now, fast track 10 years time, what's Adam Santarossa going to have achieved? What's your pie in the sky sort of stuff where you're like, that's what I'd love to call, or that's what I'd love to do, and that's where I'd love to be?
Yeah, I'd love to do more in football. There's a bit of a challenge for me at the moment in terms of employment. I obviously work for the Walt Disney Company, so I work for ESPN. So Paramount Plus have the rights to the A-League, so that's a bit of a challenge for me in terms of employment front. But I mean, I'm fortunate. I've got a great job with ESPN that I love. I mean, you mentioned before that trajectory from an 18-year-old Adam to 36-year-old Adam. There were a lot of jobs in there that Adam didn't necessarily like going to work every day, to try to, my love was radio and my love was commentary. And I'm working in bars, I'm working, in retail stores trying to earn money to survive, and what I really want to do is what I do now. So I'm very fortunate. So I love my role with ESPN, so I hope to continue there long term. They're a great company and really exciting company to work for. But in terms of the commentary, I mean, yeah, I just love, I've got a bucket list or a list of goals that I sort of write down every year. I'd love to do something at a World Cup. That's a real bucket list for me, which I think is a little bit far-fetched at the moment, but something I certainly want to work towards. And I'm a massive boxing fan as well. The two sports I've sort of loved the most since I was a kid have been boxing and football. So I would love to do like a big fight. I've called boxing before. I was lucky to be involved in a couple of shows for ESPN over the years as well. And I would love to call a big fight, whether that's an Aussie or a world title or whatever. That's a real dream for me. So, but look, to answer your question, I think the goal for me is, I'm in a situation where I love what I do. I wake up every day. I love to go to work. I'm fortunate that, I work at ESPN. I work for Sydney FC as their MC. I do commentary around that. It's pretty full on, but I love it. And my hobby is what I do for work every day. And I know people that, do far more difficult jobs that they don't love. I get to go to work every day and do something I love. So in 10 years' time, I just hope to still be able to do that and be doing something I love every day.
So when you work for your hobby, you've got to find another hobby. What are your hobbies? In the sense that do you sit back and watch sport, or do you switch off and find other things to put your energy to?
Yeah, it's changed a little bit in the last sort of 5 or so years. So I was working as a journalist for a decade or so. So I mentioned earlier I didn't get the marks to be a journalist, but I ended up going to uni and sort of back ending it through my media experience. So obviously started in community radio. I moved into TV at Channel 10 for a little bit there, and sort of commentary work and whatever. I sort of had this zigzag path to what I do now in the media. And that's sort of where it's come from. So for me, yeah, it's just about, I guess, developing my skills and trying to cultivate that path over the last decade or so.